So what we have up next, I'm so excited about this one personally, how millennial women are shaping the future. Now, what is so exciting about this is millennial women, they don't care so much about money, they care about changing the world. They care about purpose. And if you want to connect with millennial women and really attract them and their talent, this session is something that you'll definitely want to sit through. The moderator is Adam Poswolsky, and we have Nikita Mitchell, the president of Berkeley-Haas MBA Association, Jessica Simon, founder of the Passion Company, and Clementine, I'm going to say her name wrong, Clementine Wamariya, a human rights advocate and storyteller, all joining us up here. And also, if you would like, there's an additional breakout session in the Donner Room, and it's called the Self-Esteem Game. So dealing with, Carolyn talks about putting your energy out there, and Miriam Reese, who is one of our coaching circle heads, is leading that session as well. So that's in the Donner Room in addition to this, so the Self-Esteem Game. But either sit tight or head out for the Self-Esteem Game. We're gonna get started here in just a moment.
Thank you all so much for coming. My name is Adam Smiley Poswolsky. I'm the author of The Quarter Life Breakthrough, which is a guide for millennials to find meaningful work. I'm really grateful to be here. When Peggy asked me to speak about how millennial women are shaping the future, I said, yes, of course, only if I can invite some of the most talented, badass, amazing millennial women I know to the stage to talk about their work and to share their stories. So I'm so grateful to have these amazing panelists with me. I'm going to let them share their stories in a moment, but I just want to start by, if we could begin by all the millennials in the room, those born in the 80s and 90s, just stand up. All right. Awesome. Wonderful. It's so good that you're all here. All the people that manage millennials or work with millennials should be probably most people in the room. If you work with a millennial on a day-to-day basis, awesome. So this talk is for all of you. This panel is for all of you, for really all of us in this room. In 10 years, millennials will make up 75% of the workforce. 75% of the workforce. It's currently the largest demographic. And this is a generation that often gets painted in a very negative light. I'm sure most of you remember or recall the Time magazine cover, Millennials, the me generation, or the lazy generation. I disagree. I think this generation is the purpose generation. This is a generation that wants to align their work with purpose, that wants to work on something that they care about, something that matters. And you're going to hear from 3 women today that can really speak to that in their own stories and their own work. The truth is that 50% of millennials would take a pay cut to find work that matches their values. They would turn down money to find work that they care about that's making a difference. Doesn't mean they don't want money or don't need money. We all need money. This is a generation that has unprecedented levels of student debt. There's high unemployment. But this is a generation that first and foremost wants to work with purpose. 90% of millennials want to use their skills for good. And this is important because it means that the people in our generation are going to want to work for businesses that have a social mission, that are not just about profit, but are about profit and purpose. And they're going to be starting businesses that are triple bottom line companies, that are about more than just making money. So this is really important for anyone that is interested in technology, entrepreneurship, business, because this is where the future is headed. So I'm really, really delighted to invite these panelists to speak. I'm going to give them a chance to briefly introduce themselves and then dig a little deeper into their stories. So Jessica, would you like to start?
Sure. Thanks, Smiley. Thanks, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. My name's Jessica Brown, and I'm the programs director at the Passion Co. And we're a small San Francisco community-based organization that help people find and follow their passions and take action on their passions. We run events and workshops and a 5-week program that help people find what's really meaningful to them and then create a passion project and complete it with accountability, support, mentorship. And I'll talk a little more later. Yeah.
Nikita?
Hi, everyone. My name is Nikita Mitchell. I just graduated 2 weeks ago from Berkeley-Haas's MBA program. And thank you. I'm day 2 into my job at Cisco right now, so I'm a woman in tech day 2. And I actually served as the president of our MBA association at Berkeley, and I was the first African-American woman to do so. And I also worked really deeply on diversity issues, both around underrepresented minorities at Haas and going into business school more broadly, as well as gender equity. And we'll talk a little bit more about that on the panel. So I'm here representing Haas mostly, but I also have transitioned into a career in tech.
And Clementine.
I'm Clementine. I hope you can hear me. Clementine Wamariya. I'm just so thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for having us all. My background is in public speaking, or as I could say, in storytelling. I use storytelling to connect people to real issues that are happening around the world. And those issues including just regular poverty, wars, and as well as just basic discrimination. And I'll talk more about that later.
Great. So all too often we come to panels and people kind of go right into the, oh, I do this every day and this is my work and this is what's interesting. But rarely do we actually tell our stories. So I wanted to give each of the panelists an opportunity briefly to kind of share their story, some of the moments that have shaped their journey to where they are now in a way that we don't really get to do. We don't really get to hear people's stories. So Jessica, we'll start with you. Let's give us your life story in a couple of minutes, or the crucible moments.
Yeah, well, I think can you hear me?
Yeah.
I think the important piece is to start where is what got me to landing in where I am now. And that was really with my last job. I was working for a great company I really loved. I loved the mission and vision of the company. I was training coaches and consultants to do big scale organizational culture development work in large companies, and also leadership coaching. And I loved the company, but I didn't really feel like it was enough in what I was doing every day. I describe it a lot as I was in recovery mode. After working 12 hours a day, for weeks and years, for 4 years, only really having time to take care of myself and recuperate after work. I didn't have energy to put towards creative projects and things that I really dream about or am passionate about. I was just taking care of myself. And I decided I needed to take the leap and didn't really know what I wanted next. And so about 1.5 years ago, I left and I started the Passion Co. with my best friend, Jessica Simon. And I also decided to go back to school. I'm a therapist in training, and I'm studying at a school called California Institute of Integral Studies. And the amount of fulfillment I feel now compared to when I was working at a job that was great, but it wasn't me, and it didn't feel like I was able to work with people and help people in following their passions like I do now, which just brings me so much fulfillment. And yeah, there's really nothing like living a life where you feel like even if it's difficult, it's something that's you, and you know that it's worth it. Because I don't think that living your passion means that it's fun or you're happy all the time, but it's something that it feels like me, and I know I need to do it, and it feels right. And it can be hard, but it's very rewarding. So yeah.
Thank you.
I think my journey, if I was to describe it with one word, has been about authenticity. I think I've spent my entire career both trying to find a place where I can be authentic in terms of who I am, which is a queer woman, a woman of color, a woman who is first-generation American, finding those places where I can show up as myself, as well as finding the kinds of places where I can do what I think matters. And so I started my career in management consulting out of undergrad, working at Deloitte. It was a great job, I had great managers, but I felt like I couldn't have any social impact. So I jumped into the nonprofit sector where I thought, I'd be able to finally change the world. I worked for the worst manager in the world. I quit, I didn't have a job, but I was just like, my mental health is more important than saving the world. And I found all the jobs I worked as a concierge overnight while I studied for the GMAT. I took all the jobs I could find. And finally, I found a nonprofit that would allow me to consult, working on social media strategy for them, 4-H, the youth development organization. They knew I was going to business school, and they were like, come work with us, come do your thing, and take us to the next level in terms of social media. And they let me run with my creativity, my full self. And I felt empowered for the first time to not only do the kinds of things that I felt mattered, but do them in the best way possible because I could be me. And I vowed that I would never go back. And so I chose Berkeley as a business school over other schools that gave me a lot more money. So Sally Mae and I are really good friends right now.
Me too.
But I chose it because it was the only place that I knew that I could authentically show up and be myself. And I really, really wanted to learn how to be the kind of leader that I thought the world needed. And in order to do that, I needed to be able to bring my full self to my experience. And Berkeley gave me that. And the past 2 years have been the most incredible reward for me. It's been really challenging. It's tested me like nothing else has ever tested me, but it's tested me, not some version of myself that I thought I was supposed to be, not some version of myself that my parents want me to be, which is quite disappointing for them sometimes. But it's allowed me to really figure out, like, what does success look like when I am my best self? And so for me, in choosing Cisco, I'm actually working for a manager that wrote my recommendation letter for business school, and I'm really excited to go into this next phase of my life, knowing what that version of me looks like and knowing what kinds of places would allow me to show up and be my best self every day. And my whole journey, till the day I die, I think will always be about being authentic to who I am and the kind of person that I strive to be in the world.
Thank you.
I feel like I should clap.
Yeah, I agree.
Both of you. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to, how to begin. My journey, I would say, began when I was aware that it was the beginning. When conflict began in my country, when I was only 6 years old. And as some of you might have kids at home, a 6-year-old just want and want and want questions and questions and questions. And I kept asking questions. What was going on? Who was going to kill who? And I had no answers. And things completely turned upside down. And the only person that I had to ask those questions was my sister, who was my worst enemy. And so I began asking questions without asking questions, by observing people, by asking people their stories. In refugee camps, ended up with my sister living in 8 different countries in 5 different refugee camps all over in East and Southern Africa. So my career of being a very nosy storyteller / story listener began when I was not even aware of, because I really wanted to know what was the world that I was entering before I even knew what the world as a globe is. And so I continued asking questions, and in 2000, my older sister and I were able to be, we got an asylum to come to the United States. I began school at age 13, managed to graduate from high school, and then just last year graduated from Yale. And those But I would say in all, my journey has been about people, and it's had both purpose, and sitting and communicating with, Jessica, Nikki, and I would try to project. Can you hear me? Yes. So being in a community of people who truly care about other people is where I thrive, and is where I've always been thriving. Oh.
I want to hear.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks.
From being in refugee camps, from living in countries where you're unwanted, it was always about people who stopped and asked, how are you? Or do you need help? Or do you want to play? And so when I meet people who are passionate about just life in general, I get excited. And this is why it's been so hard for me to pick a career, except being a storyteller, because I like listening too. So that's what I do.
Thank you. I'm going to collectively drop the mic for all of these amazing stories. I just want to thank the panelists for sharing, and I think a couple things stood out to me that are kind of metaphors, let's say, for this generation, or for living a life or a career with purpose, and that the panelists touched on: authenticity, vulnerability, discovering the conditions that allow you to be your best self, curiosity, and asking questions. So for those of you in career transition or looking to develop your career, always those themes kind of reign true. And similar for me, I'll give a brief background on my story. I was living in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago, working a job for the federal government, very good job security, healthcare, benefits. Was quite unhappy. So I had this great job on paper. I'd go to happy hour and tell people I was the special assistant to the director of global operations at the Peace Corps, and they'd ask for my business card, and my parents were impressed, and everyone thought it was great, and I could have job security forever because you really can't get fired from working for the government. Believe me, there are lots of people that should. But internally, I was unfulfilled, and I woke up every day with that kind of pain in my stomach, that pain going up and down my back, that this wasn't right. And it was really only when I met other young people, other millennials going through the same exact thing I was, that I was able to have turn this moment of quarter-life crisis into a breakthrough. And I was, during my crisis, spending all this time on Facebook, comparing myself to others. Oh, there's my friend going to business school. There's my friend starting a nonprofit. There's my friend opening a food truck. Maybe I should open a food truck, even though I can't drive and I'm an awful cook. But it was really only when I went to a program that actually Nikita and I did together, a fellowship program called Starting Block, the Starting Block Institute for Social Innovation, which brings together young people, 20-somethings, 30-somethings, that are interested in social change, using business for good, starting social enterprises, that I was able to kind of realize, oh, it doesn't necessarily matter what other people are doing, it matters who you are and what you care about. And that's the point, and figuring out what's meaningful to you. So I met a lot of people at Starting Block that kind of said, well, who are you, Starting Block? Who are you, Smiley? What do you want to do? And I told them I wanted to start writing. I wanted to move to San Francisco. I've always wanted to live in the Bay Area. I wanted to start being a writer, being more creative, supporting social entrepreneurs and young people going after their dreams. And they were like, oh, you have to do that. You have to do that. Because when you find believers, you also find accountability. So all of us, I think, are very lucky in that we are in circles of support, of accountability. And that's been so important for my transition in my career. And I think the only reason I was able to write a book, or the only reason we're sitting on this stage, is because of that support and those communities of support, which maybe we can talk about a little later. I'd like to ask each of the panelists to talk about something they've learned about millennials in their work. All of you interact, you are millennials, you also interact daily with millennials in everything that you do. So what makes this generation unique? What's the deal with millennials? What are some of the things that make us great and the things that are challenges? Let's start with Clementine this time.
I could start. I mentor a lot of students, and I cannot speak for all millennials. I could speak for few students that I have been mentoring, and that I've worked with. I travel all over the world to speak about my experience in order to inspire young people, especially to be able to have a purpose-driven life. And the millennials that I have worked with, one thing that, and also myself, that I catch myself, we think we're very special. Very extra special, as if we have an extra brain or something. And maybe it's because our phone, we have a phone as a second brain. And sometimes, it's so true, sometimes I catch myself in a situation where I want something to be done and it's not being done instantly, like my text going straight to someone else. And it gets very frustrating. Or I observe some of my friends having a conversation and someone telling them, oh, I can't be there today because of X and Y and Z. And them just flipping out and just going crazy. I'm like, calm down, it's okay. But then I realized that the problem and the great thing about us is that we have every tool possible to make things happen, especially for few of us who've gone to colleges and for few of us who've gotten a really, great high education. And at the same time, we have too many choices, just way too many, completely overwhelming. And so therefore, we put everything in a calendar, our Google Calendar. I sent my mom a Google Calendar. I was like, no, I'm not going to look at that thing. You call me when you need to call me. And so there is this side of millennials that I love so much, which we have so much, we could do so much, but at the same time, we think we're a little bit a different kind of being from those who are before us, which I don't believe, and I believe we could use more humility. Just a little bit more humility and more patient. I know that we have this very instant world where it's easy to click, but to realize that sometimes it's going to take a while and to have patience. So I'm looking in the mirror. Scary.
I think something I'm hopeful for, and I mean, it's very personal, so I'm hopeful for my own well-being, but also because I think it'll benefit all of society, as I think as we start to deal with diversity issues in a more meaningful way within organizations, I think our generation is thinking about it from a more intersectional perspective. I think it's not just about talking about women, it's not just about talking about certain underrepresented minorities, it's not just about talking about the LGBT movement, it's not just about talking about people with disabilities, it's about all of these things. There are people who have all of these identities and they don't wake up and say, I don't wake up and say, I'm just a woman today. I don't wake up and say, I'm just black today. And I don't wake up and say, I'm just gonna have a girlfriend today. Like, those things don't happen. I do all of them every day at the same time, all the time. And I'm tired of having to live the diversity movement separately. And I think that there is so much hope in our generation for the people who are thinking about it in that way. I think about the Black Lives Matter movement, and you think about it in the Bay. Melissa Harris Perry said this on a panel, and it was so beautiful. She said that the millennials are queering the movement. And historically, the black community did not always embrace the LGBT community when it comes to civil rights. It did not always talk about feminist issues. It did not talk about these things because the idea was we got to deal with this thing first, and everybody wants to prioritize their identity first. But you know what? It doesn't work that way, because when you actually deal with the most oppressed parts of your societies, everybody gets uplifted. And if there's one hope that I have, it's that our generation will be able to do it. My personal experiences, even in business school, has been one of a lot of frustration in living those different identities separately. But I have had a lot of classmates, women, who will just raise their hand in marketing class and say, well, how does this, basically the stereotype impact other communities? And ask those really hard questions that, as the only black woman in the class, as the only black person in often most classes, I get tired of asking that shit. Sometimes I just want to know, like, I'm there trying to learn too. And so, like, I'm already trying to grasp the basic concept. I don't want to have to educate the professor on my identity at the same time. And so I'm very hopeful that our generation, and you know, this is maybe a pipe dream, maybe it won't come to fruition, but I think if there was ever a generation that will learn how to do it, it's going to be ours.
I want that so bad. Wow, that issue is very, very close to my heart. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Yeah, I totally agree with everything both of you are saying. And something that strikes me that I've learned about millennials too is obviously we're so smart. We have so much access to so much information, so savvy, all of these things. And I also noticed that there's things lacking, right? With the fast-pacedness, the insurmountable amount of options we have. I think a lot of what I see in the Passion Co, people coming to our program, is they're really craving space and they're really craving connection. And when I say space, it's space to actually pause and reflect on what's meaningful. What are my values? What is my sense of purpose? Because when we're going, we're on a treadmill, we're on a hamster wheel, we don't actually get the chance to stop and think and become aware. Like, why am I really doing this? Is this really what I want? Is this really what I believe in? And I think that's something the millennials really crave. And also, connection means community. So even though we're super connected digitally, online, everything, I think there's a real lack in actual face-to-face, in real life, IRL, communication and contact that people are really craving. I love that our program brings a lot of people together in a safe, intimate setting where people can stop and pause and reflect on these important questions together and connect through that inquiry. So.
Yeah, and I think one of the elements there of about the Passion Co program that's really powerful, also a program that Clementine and I did together called the Hive Global Leaders Program, is that it brings together people in person, right? That's why, you know, a conference like this where people are gathered in person and can hear each other's stories face to face. So yes, we're connected, and yes, this is the digital generation, and all of us remember growing up without social media and without phones, which is great. But our colleagues in the younger half of millennials and then Generation Z is actually growing up completely on Facebook, which is very powerful and interesting and kind of scary. And I think there's a disconnect between that level of connection and also people's ability to be open and genuine with who they are and what they care about. Because you might have 2,000 friends, but you don't really have 2,000 friends. And no one can have 2,000 friends, right? You can't, sorry. Good luck, maybe you can, but that would be, your schedule it wouldn't be very fun.
You wouldn't be able to do much.
You wouldn't be smiling too much. But I think, you know, one thing, you know, I think we talk a lot about in terms of careers, millennials and job hopping. I think you heard 4 stories of transition of people looking for something else. Millennials get, I think, kind of pointed as, oh, these are just job hoppers, they're not going to stay. The data shows that a millennial is leaving their job right around about every 2.5 to 3 years, falls in there. 2.5 to 3 years is not that long. The average person of any age right now is leaving their job around 4 to 5 years. So there's not much of a difference. So kind of my parents and their generation, it would be much more common to get a job at a company or organization and stay there the majority of your career. That's no longer happening. And the companies that understand that, and I think embrace that idea that besides for rare cases and with certain skills, most people are going to be working at a variety of organizations or having multiple careers within their learning journey. That's just where we're headed. Because of advances in technology, things are changing so fast, you have to learn new skills, you have to adapt. Because of changes in the economy, because of globalization, people are going to be staying at companies for shorter amounts of time, and maybe that's okay. maybe you don't want to stay somewhere for 20 years because, well, it's hard to stay excited and energized about your work for that long. And you can have a great impact on a company and their mission for a short amount of time and then go do something else and have a great mission, have a great impact on that company and bring on your friend to go take your job. So I think the more we start to get outside the traditional kind of corporate HR box of someone comes in and when they retire, they leave, is when we get to start, we get going somewhere. I like to think that, say the expression that HR is the new life coach. So, traditionally, human resources has kind of fulfilled a very, automated bureaucratic role of their job is to file paperwork and make sure that someone is onboarded. I think it's the opposite. I think that real human resources is to make sure that people are fulfilled, that they're engaged, that they're aware of their values, they're aware of what the company can give, what that person can give the company, and what that person can do after. You're treating the person as someone greater than the company. The company is not greater than the individual. So HR departments and VPs and directors that understand that embrace that give their people coaching and guidance, I think are going to attract the best talent. You're going to get the best people to work for you, and your company's going to succeed in terms of profit and purpose. So something to think about.
I think what's interesting too is, 4 to 5 years, the old model wasn't really working anyway because employee engagement numbers are so low at most companies. So why get 70% of your employees' talent for 30 years? Is that even ideal? Why not tap into 110% of what they can do for the 4 years, 5 years that they'll be there? And then if you really want to keep them, transition them into a really awesome opportunity within the organization. I don't know, I guess maybe it's naivete because we're so young and dumb, but I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. There's that quote, I forget who said it, but it's what happens if we give these people this training or we let them do this and they leave. Say that again? You can speak up. I forget who, and then the quote is, well, what happens if we don't and they stay? Right? Yeah. So according to I think Gallup's 2013 poll, 70% of Americans are disengaged at their jobs. 70%. 1/5 of those people are so disengaged, they're actively undermining their coworkers' work. So they're literally getting paid to mess things up for the company that they work for, which, I would just rather not pay those people and not have them mess things up, save money and let them go off and, be happy and be fulfilled and show up more fully for themselves and their families. So we just need to start thinking being more innovative about that stuff. I want to ask all of you are obviously bold, fearless leaders. What advice do you have for people looking to work with purpose and to find more purpose in their careers and their lives?
I could go ahead and start. And what I didn't say, it's very interesting to, especially in tech, there's so much we can do to connect with our world. And especially with information, there's so many things we can do. But I feel that sometimes we get so stuck into the bubble and we are not able to look outside. And so, and a great example, maybe it's for millennials, or maybe it's for other people, really great example is a few of my friends sitting down, and one of my friends came up with this idea of what if you could order, I don't know, burger at McDonald's and an Android would just pick it up and just drop it off at your place, and you could just scan it where it goes. And I thought, well, that would be really nice. That would be really nice to have a burger just drop right when I'm hungry. And then I took it back. I took a few steps back. I took 13 years back in my life. There are so many people who do not even have food or water or shelter. Not because they don't work hard, and not because they don't care, but because they've never had opportunities. Their country has been into wars, into famine. So they cannot even begin to think about what is going to be the next day? And so in terms of working with purpose, what a new invention? What invention are already existing to be able to connect these worlds, not for charity, but because it's a good thing to do. When you're hungry, you're definitely hungry. Yes, it'd be great to have an android drop me a burger, be really great. But what if we could take it even further to people who truly could use it? And it doesn't have to be outside of United States. It could be even right here. What technology are we holding off right now in this room? What kind of information are you keeping away? And so working with purpose for me, it means being absolutely aware, like open your eyes. Let's open our eyes, let's open our ears. What else can do with what we already have and what we can make? That's a living a purposeful life for me.
I think the advice I would give is related to the work that you do. I love that you said you give people space, and space to think, reflect, understand what matters for them. I think business school is a whirlwind of 2 years. People think that it's 2 years of fun and figuring out what you're going to do. It is a lot of fun. But you don't have time to figure out what you want to do. You actually start recruiting as soon as you set foot on campus. And the people who have the hardest time succeeding in the environment are the people who don't really know what they want, because the opportunities come and they think that they have to seize every one of them. And as you know, it is not possible to seize everything that comes through your door, especially when your whole focus in that moment, which in business school is just opportunities, right? And I think for the people who choose a school like Berkeley in particular, but people who just have a very unconventional desire, like my passion is social innovation, and I really believe that business, like Fortune 500 companies, have a role to play in our society and all of these things, and not from giving out money, but from the very things that they do every day. If you have an unconventional, career aspiration, dream, whatever it is, and there's lots of opportunities that are coming through the door that are easy to take, that really don't fit what you want or who you are, if you've never sat down and thought about that, then you're probably gonna take it. And I think the greatest gift you can give yourself, and it is such a privilege, like it is the epitome of privilege to be able to stop and think about what you want, right? You have to have the money, the resources, the time that most people in this world just don't have. But if you have it, you are wasting something. And it is a disservice to not only yourself, but to the community that you could be impacting and the world. And I think if you were just to sit and think, you don't have to know what your purpose is in that moment, but just think about it and choose the things that just feel right. I think over the last 5 years, the best thing I've ever done for my career is go with my gut and learn that I actually was right in most of the things that I did wrong and did right. And when all the opportunities that my classmates were pursuing that were often great for them, but were wrong for me, when I felt comfortable enough to say, no, that's not the path that I want, there's just this one thing I'm gonna do. And people thought I was crazy because I was just pursuing one thing at a time. But I knew that I wanted that one thing, and if I didn't get it, it's okay, the world continues. There's the next day for me to try for another thing. But if you're not confident about what you want, who you are, and the potential for your impact in the world, then you will never know what the next one thing is that you could pursue. And I think that when you have that privilege in the world, and you've been given the kind of education that I've been given, the kind of resources that I've been given, I feel like that would basically be throwing away all of the sacrifices that my parents made to come to this country, to put me through school, all of the things that people have fought for, my ancestors, everything would be basically thrown away if I wasn't to stop and think about what it is that mattered for me. So the biggest piece of advice I'd give somebody is to just, if you have that privilege, really stop and think and really understand what it is that you want, not who's creating a food truck or the next organization. And because our friends are doing things, hopefully, that are right for them, but that doesn't mean it's right for us.
I love that. Yeah, with that privilege, I think, comes responsibility, right? To really take that pause and say, what is really important to me? Not superficially, but deeply. And I think the advice that I give to people, because you don't need to know ultimately what is the deepest sense of meaning, but what we encourage people to do is just take action, try something, test it. So at the Passion Co., we use design thinking, lean startup, and we get people taking action on trying something that they're passionate about. How many people have done a passion project? Ever? Yeah? Awesome. So anyone can do a passion project, right? We can have ideas, things that we're passionate about. And the way that I look at passion is a vehicle for expressing your deeper why, your deeper meaning, what's really important to you. So go, take some action. We get stuck a lot in rumination, like, oh, do I really like this? Am I going to be really good at this? Someone else does it better than me. We have all these resistance patterns. But just taking action and trying something, and then seeing how it goes and learning from there, making connections, can lead you to fascinating places, right? Yeah. You can meet someone, you can start a company, you can, but having that sense of meaning, and this is something that's really important to me, gives you the wherewithal and the sustainability to actually go for it. Because if it's kind of a shallow why, it's probably not going to last or take you very far, or give the kind of impact you're really looking for. That's what I've found with people.
Yeah, please.
So I think the other thing that millennials, we struggle with in being these purpose-driven people is we think that the next thing has to be the thing.
Yeah.
Totally.
And that's something that like I struggle with internally too. Like, oh, well, my life purpose, I need to do it now. I just paid all this money. Sally Mae is asking me for all this money back. So like, I need to be happy right now with the rest of my life. And I think it took the realization and the comfort in being like, no, this next step has to just be getting me there. Like, is this next step in that direction? And am I going to get the tools? That's the other thing I think as millennials we undervalue, is having the time and the space to develop the skills and the tools that would allow us to be effective in our purpose. And feeling confident and okay with, you know, what others might think might not be on our path, even though we know inside it is actually exactly on our path. Mm-hmm. And we can easily get caught up, well, Nikita's not working at this socially conscious company, or Nikita's not working at a nonprofit, or Nikita's not, you know, running this organization in her community. But what I know is that the thing that I've decided will make me better at any of those things in the future if those are what I decide to do. And I think my friends and I, we struggle so much with that. And yes. That's something I would want to tell, even just like myself 4 years ago, that the next thing doesn't have to be, what makes the next thing right isn't what it looks like on the outside.
Yes. You all are making amazing points. I'm writing my next book here. One thing, a couple things I want to highlight. Thank you for all sharing so deeply and wisely. I think both Clementine and Nikita mentioned this idea of patience. So this is something that I think millennials are lacking, is patience. We've got the purpose thing going. Millennials want to make a difference. They want their work to make a difference, not just, you know, volunteering on Tuesday nights or doing something on Saturdays, but their work. They're 9 to 5, they're 9 to 7, they're 10 to whatever, because a lot of people now have flexible work schedules that aren't working a traditional 9 to 5. They want their work to make a difference. They want to work with purpose, work with value, change the world, and get paid. But it's really hard to get this sense of it doesn't have to happen now. Because I think that there is something with managing millennials that you have to give millennial talent and ability to make a difference, to do projects where they can see the direct impact now, or they will flee. If you say like, if you work on this like in 18 years, we might, you know, change the way we do this internal system. They're like, okay, bye, thanks. Like 18 years, are you kidding me? Like, no. And yet, anyone that's built a career, and most of you here, many of you have built amazingly successful careers, knows that it takes time. For me with writing, it's taken me about 3 years to get to a point where my work is kind of being recognized, even in a small way. 3 years is a long time. That's a long time to show up every day and sit there at the computer and go to the library and write. And some writers, it takes 10, 20, 30 years, and depending on, so this idea of patience, so having the purpose and the patience. Patience is so important because we want things now. We're so connected, but building a career that matters is not online dating, right? You can't swipe right. You can't just hit like. You can't retweet. You actually have to put in the time to learn the tools, to make the connections, to build the communities, to mess up, to fail. I think, you know, I think many of us have shared stories of figuring out what didn't work to get closer to something that does. And most of the people that I've met that have started a successful business or who, and it's hard to, you can't rate meaning, like, you know, who's more fulfilled, who the hell, you know, this is all subjective. The people that seem to be happy on a day-to-day basis and seem to be doing something that they care about, you know, that's making the world go in a positive direction, have definitely had the opposite feeling at some point in their life or their career, where they've hit rock bottom, or they worked for the boss that just didn't fit. They worked for the company where they're like, what am I doing here? They started a business and it was a complete flop, or they started a business that was really successful and they were so stressed out and crazy that they never saw their kids and hated their life, but they've had that kind of, that 180. And that's important. So to understand that out of failure, out of crisis, out of conflict is opportunity and possibility. I think is really powerful. The other thing is the not comparing yourself to others, which we all touched on, which is so hard, again, with the connection. And, you know, on a given, I was just off Facebook for 2 weeks, which is actually a long time. Has anyone ever been off Facebook for like 2 weeks in a row that's on? Yeah, great. Has anyone just like not on Facebook? Awesome. Good. Great. I envy you. I wish I could do that. Although Facebook is an incredible tool, and the only reason probably all of us are on the stage today is because of social media and our ability to share our message and connect and share our work, and yet there has to be a balance there. You have to develop a healthy relationship, because otherwise, you know, I can see hundreds of people doing such cool things, traveling or starting a business or getting a new job or going to business school or sitting in the woods or whatever, and it's really hard to stay positive about your own choices and to feel valued about your own life when you see all these other people's lives. And I think that that's a big issue facing all of us today, regardless of age. With social media, it's really hard. So how do you develop your own rituals and practices that allow you to honor your friends and celebrate their accomplishments and not let it veer you off on your own journey?
Yeah. I want to say something about
Please.
that. We talk a lot about, we call it self-love at the Passion Co, but it's really like self-awareness, right? Because it takes a certain amount of knowing yourself and loving yourself to follow your passions and your meaning, because you have to take time to nurture what it is you love, and that takes a lot of practice in self-care and dedication, because there's a whole world of distraction out there trying to pull us away from that.
Yes, and also I would definitely add on not being afraid to not be liked.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's so difficult sometimes because now we're, you post something you post something little heart, you post something retweet, and it is constantly feeding and feeding and feeding. And so not being afraid to not be liked, it's just noise, just a lot of noise. And not being afraid to not be liked, it helps you being able to see things a bit more clear in terms of what you really want to do with your life, at least personally. And also what you want to say. You cannot just stay on, with the team and everyone is agreeing and you're sitting there and like, I completely disagree. Here, I completely disagree. Here's why. I love you all, but completely disagree. It's not that I don't like you or anything, but so taking that step and taking that chance, not being liked, it's so great, especially since we get a thumbs up, we get a heart, we're getting, the retweet, you're getting a repost, and just that is playing with our mind a little bit slowly. And I think of millennials, it's just knowing that you don't have to be the loved person or the recognized person. Oh, do you not make Forbes 30 under 30? Who cares? What did you do yesterday with your family? That's all matters. And so comparing, goodness, it would be insane if we try to go there. And again, with that self-love, if you love what you do, it's your own, not anyone else's. Done.
Thank you. Perfectly said. I want to make sure, I think we should open it up for questions, because I know that we didn't get to do Q&A for the last panel. So,
come to this mic for questions, please, and line up. Thank you.
Come talk to us.
Are we? Yeah. Anyone? Are we?
Question.
Please. And if you could just say your name.
Hi, my name is Linda, and my question is, as millennials, do you, and this is directed at the women, do you think that there's...
I can walk off the stage. No, just kidding.
You can stay. But do you, you look at an organization like this, and this organization is all about empowering women because, frankly, women have needed a lot of help in the workforce and work together and get all these equality issues out of the way. Do you think that the next generation, the millennials, do you guys feel that? Do you face it? Like in your school, in your work, in your life, do you notice it? Or like you're the perfect generation of purpose and passion, but not equality?
Not equality. So 29%, that's the percentage of women who were in my class when I started business school. 29%. Now, this is not something that surprised me. I chose business school. I knew it was pretty male dominated. But I was shocked by that number. 3, that's the number of black women in my class, and that included me, right? So 3 of us. A group of us, we actually were so kind of taken aback by this, and there was a New York Times article about HBS that fall as well, about their issue around gender and what other business schools were experiencing, the top business schools. And we just started having these potlucks and lunches and decided, we just needed to commiserate about what this experience is like. Because you're in the classroom, comments are said, like I'm pretty outspoken, I'm pretty bold, I'm pretty, I have a lot of opinions and I share them constantly. Great. And so I'm often the person who would say something in class. But what I started noticing is I could hear that there were other women who were sighing or making noises when comments were made that were clearly very sexist or whatever-ist in the classroom. And not because somebody was intending to be offensive, but just because they were ignorant. And so we started having these casual group meetings. And then we decided we needed to do more than just bitch about it. And so we started setting up meetings with the administration. We sat down with our admissions, we sat down with our program office, we sat down with our dean, we worked with the alumni office, and we created a plan, essentially, to help our school figure out what to do around gender. And not to say that they weren't doing anything before, but it wasn't student-led. And the people who pay the money make a lot of difference in an organization, right? And that spring, this is the spring of my first year, we decided to target admissions. So we started having alumni women call admits, because we realized it wasn't that we didn't have enough women applying. They were choosing other schools over us, or they were choosing not to go to business school at all, maybe because they saw the numbers, right? And between my year and the second year, we raised the percentage to 43%. And so Berkeley became the highest had the highest percentage. Next was, I think, Stanford, and then HBS, and then Kellogg. All these schools were trying to figure out what to do, but we had a way farther leap to make. And I say all this to say that we're talking about it. We definitely think these organizations are so critical to our success. But I think we're starting to see and feel empowered because we have all of these tools to do it ourselves as well. And working with people who are doing the work at different levels is so important for us to see, to believe that what we do will have an impact.
Thank you.
Hello. Is it fair that I ask a question because I'm Nancy? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure.
So I wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart because I was born in '78, so I was like the very beginning of the millennials, like right on the edge. And I remember thinking I was crazy because, you know, I was one of the first, and I used to call myself an unapologetic outlier. And I really thought I was nuts because no matter what I did, even though I was following that plan, I was following that path to success, I was, you know, focused on all these outward goals, I wasn't happy. Yeah. And it is that feeling deep in the pit of your stomach and your soul. It's your energy. It's all these things coming together going, this isn't right. I need to do something that feeds my soul. And it was really hard. And so when this all came out and the millennial generation got its tag, I went, oh my God, I'm not nuts. So thank you for everything you're sharing. I wanted to sit there and cry because I wanted to clap and say, you have helped me feel like I'm not crazy.
Thank you.
But more than anything, I want all of the women here to understand how they can connect better with us. Because WITI's goal is build, empower, inspire. And that fits so much in line with the millennial generation. So what organizations can WITI get involved in locally in each city? What groups, what people? Maybe name a few of those here and maybe come talk to me afterwards and I can share that with the rest of the women here because there's this gap in the room and I want to make sure we're closing it.
Great question.
Thank you.
Anyone want to jump in?
Me, okay. You are not crazy and you are not alone.
Yeah.
First of all. Wow, well, we're connected to so many people. So many people come through our program and are starting amazing ventures that are so close to their heart. There's someone in our program right now that I wanted to mention before. She just came to me yesterday and she's starting a nonprofit for Latino young adults to try to send them to college, people out of East San Jose, and she's tearing up talking about this project that's so meaningful to her. I was just thinking about that earlier because of this responsibility piece, right? And through Passion Co, we have so many people doing amazing work to connect this build, inspire, empower. So definitely look us up and we'll connect you to tons of cool projects to get involved in. You can find us on Facebook, you can email me. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not going to speak about Hive, I'm going to let you speak about Hive.
Okay.
But there are just so many organizations here in the Bay Area that I've been involved with, and I'll let you talk about Hive. But there are so many refugees who are coming from Syria, from all over Africa, from South America. And there are all these organizations doing all they can to really make sure that the life transitions very smoothly. And they could use so much help, even just looking at their website, knowing how to collect data, knowing how to follow back with people, learning how to organize. These are people who are passionate, but they don't have tools and guidance to be able to really keep their organization sustainable. So if you're in need to be connected to anything has to do with education, refugee, women and young women, mostly in Chicago, where I've been, and in New Haven, I'm your girl.
I'll mention one organization that Clementine and I are both a part of that I think would actually be a great fit to partner with WITI, and I can connect you to the team, is Hive, H-I-V-E, the Hive Global Leaders Program. Hive.org is their website. They run 3-day experiential programs for purpose-driven leaders and entrepreneurs in San Francisco, so far it's been a focus on folks on their 20s and the 30s, but they're definitely talking about opening up to people of all ages. That was just like the focus to get started. But the idea there is to build a community, a supportive community of people that are working in tech, that are working in business, that are working in social enterprises, nonprofits, bring all these people together for 3 days and not just kind of have seminars and have people speaking on the stage, but actually get people to get to know each other, to support each other's projects, to share their stories, to really build alliances so that you can kind of create this pollination where people might join each other's boards or help each other find funding or help each other start a blog or whatever it is. And Hive is a great example of one of those organizations. My website lists a bunch of resources as well of organizations that are kind of doing purpose-driven work in this area. So I think we have time for maybe one more question.
Hi, my name is Vanessa, and I also want to thank you for doing this panel. I've never been to an event in which it was focused specifically on millennials, so I'm really inspired. I just graduated with an MBA a couple years ago. We had 0 black women in our class. We improved the numbers the year after me. But I'm kind of at a little bit of a crossroads in my career at the moment. I'm almost doing what I want to do. I'm working in nonprofit, helping people realize their dreams. I would just switch from working with entrepreneurs to switching to some kind of environmentalism type work. But my boss has told me that working in nonprofit, I make approximately 1/3 of my market rate, and I'm barely surviving as it is. So I'm wondering, what is your opinion on balancing doing what you love and getting paid enough to get by, and not just get by, but have a good life?
Great question. Nikita, do you want to jump in there?
I love money. So I left my corporate career at Deloitte to work in the nonprofit sector, where I made, I think, 2/3 of what I had been making before. And then that was the job that I told you wasn't worth my mental health. And I stayed in the nonprofit sector for another 2 years after that, before deciding to go back to business school. And part of that was, I can't save the world being poor. Like, I just can't. Like, you just can't do anything when you don't have resources yourself. Now, do I want to be wealthy at the expense of any community? No, that's unacceptable for me. So I think for me, my personal goal is to get the tools and the skills from the organizations that I at least respect, even if they're not doing quite the work that I want to do, so that I can pave a path, if not there, somewhere else, where my skills are valued enough to have that impact. I'd rather do that than find the right organization that won't pay me, because you get stuck and your pay won't ever go. And we already only make, well, as a black woman, I only make 60 cents on the dollar to a man. So as a woman, you're only making 77 cents, right? So why start already at the bottom if you can go somewhere that's going to give you skills that'll be marketable? Now, the cool thing is we're living in a time, again, I think our generation is just really fortunate. We've got the B Corps movement. We've got all of these organizations that are out there, particularly doing environmental work. Like I'm not passionate about environmental issues, but if I were, the dream company for me would be Patagonia, because it's just at the core of what they do. And you've got so many options, REI, things like that. And I think, I'd love to talk to you more. Maybe it's about finding the right fit organizationally. But I think there just are so many other alternatives that I am hopeful that the nonprofit sector will no longer be able to underpay people, because all of the great talent will find purpose-driven careers outside. That's my goal.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. Thanks. We have to wrap up. Thank you all so much. Thank you to the panelists. Jessica, Nikita, Clementine.
Thanks, Smiley.
Thank you all.